Hi, good morning, and welcome to day 4 of Explore Meditation 5-day class. So far we've gone over what meditation is and what are these myths that sometimes we get caught up in, but really underneath that, what is really meditation? And then we went into different ways creatively, using your body, using your senses to access meditation. So knowing that meditation isn't just necessarily sitting with your eyes closed and feeling zen. Knowing that, with that understanding, what can you actually do to explore meditation and make it broader for you and really experience that? So that's what we covered on day 2. Yesterday, we went into how do you watch a feeling when a feeling arises? What is it you do when something comes up in life, and how do you ride that wave of a feeling? So that was yesterday and yesterday's homework, and you can still catch up on these homeworks because tomorrow I'll pick a lucky winner and give them something. I haven't decided what that something is yet, but so if you have suggestions, pop them in and I'll keep them in mind. But catch up on the homework if you haven't yet. And the homework from yesterday is to practice this really simple technique: breathe, relax, feel, watch, allow, so that in a moment when maybe you most need calm, it's at your fingertips. It's easier to reach. So that was the purpose of yesterday's class. Now, today's class, what I'd planned on sharing is what I call the best kept secret. But I've looked at the questions you've been writing, and actually I feel really called to speak a little bit to the questions first and then talk a bit about sleep and brain waves and things like that. So let's talk about the questions that I've been getting, and if you have any questions from the last 3 days of practice, pop them in. We'll do a bit of Q&A and then I'll jump into lesson 4. And before we get even into the Q&A, I thought we could do a little breathing practice together. So here's a little breathing practice. You might have already learned this or seen this in another video. It's alternate nostril breathing. And since I want to speak a little bit about balance and sleep and what is that, this is a useful practice because it can bring about balance. It can help if the mind is running and it's hard to sleep. And it is said that when we alternate the different sides of our breath and our body, that we alternate the different hemispheres of the brain. I haven't actually looked up the science on that, but I've heard that. And what I also have heard is that dolphins, some of the most intelligent creatures on this planet, that dolphins actually alternate their different brain hemispheres before falling asleep. And they've actually scanned a dolphin's brain and seen what a dolphin does as it's falling asleep. So if this practice, and I believe it does, but if this practice does indeed alternate your brain hemispheres, that's kind of cool and it could be quite powerful. So we'll just do like a couple minutes of alternate nostril breathing, and then I'll get into Q&A and we'll go on to this best kept secret of ease, and hopefully we get that all done up in the next 30 minutes or so. If you have questions, pop them in and I'll address them. So to get started with a little bit of alternate nostril breathing, just take your right hand and fold down your pointer finger and your middle finger until you have these 3 fingers. Hi Munishwari, nice to see you. And so you have these 3 fingers, and you bring your thumb to your right nostril and the other 2 fingers to the left nostril. And you gently cover the right nostril and you breathe in on the left side. The top of the inhalation, cover, flip sides, and breathe out on the right. Breathe in on the right. Switch and breathe out on the left. That's 1 breath. Any questions? Great, let's do a few more breaths then. Right hand covering right nostril, right thumb covering right nostril. Breathing in on the left. Switch, breathe out. Breathing in on the right. Switch, breathe out the left. Twice more together, and then you go at your own pace. So breathing in on the left. Switch, breathe out on the right. Breathing in on the right. Switch, breathe out on the left. And one last time together. In. Switching at the top of the inhalation and breathing out. Breathing in. Switching at the top of your inhalation and breathing out. And now I'd like you to continue doing this at your own pace, at the pace of your own breath. As you do this, relax the right shoulder, straighten the back, tuck in the chin. Always remembering that you switch sides at the top of an inhalation. If your mind wanders, bring your focus to the center of your forehead. Just one more breath wherever you are. One more full cycle. And next time you exhale on the left side, just release the practice. Let your right hand float down, rest upon your right knee if you're cross-legged. And observe. Notice how you feel, the quality of your mind. Notice the state of your breath. Notice the rhythm of your heart. Notice the clarity, the state of clarity in your mind. Very good. And then just take a couple of normal balancing, cleansing breaths. So deep breath in. Out with the mouth. Another one. Deep breath in. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So pop in the chat box in the comments. Let me know how you feel. Would love to know how you feel. And hopefully I can see them. Let me also see if I can log into Facebook on my computer so I can see them as well. I'm not entirely sure I see them on my phone. So that's actually one of my favorite practices. And you might have heard me say this before if you followed me for a bit of time. This is one of my favorite teaching stories. But my yoga teacher's teacher, this extraordinary man called Swami Kripalu, all he practiced was basically this practice with some holds of the breath at particular ratios, and those are very important. But it was basically a version of this practice that he practiced for like 10 hours a day. And it brought him, welcome Claudia, and it brought him to extraordinary states of energy rising up within him. It brought him like a Kundalini awakening through a practice that comes from Hatha Yoga. He experienced an extraordinary awakening of energy within him, and its extraordinary transmutation of his being into love, and his entire everything was just this emanation of love. So that is the power that's there in a practice that could seem very simple. I'm glad. So Adair says that she's feeling clear and integrated after that alternate nostril breathing. It's something that I find so clearing. Use the word clearing. And this breath is called Nadi Shodhana. When it has the holds, it's called something else. But Nadi has to do with the you know when you look at a caduceus, like the symbol of the CDC or the symbol of medicine anywhere, with the two snakes intertwining around that stick and coming out the top with little angel wings? That is an old image that finds its roots in the description of the main pathways of energy around our spine. So in the yogic tradition, it's referred to as Ide and Pingala, these two alternating pathways. And then there is the central column, Sushumna. In other traditions, it has other names. It is depicted across many traditions. And so the nadis are these pathways, both those and all the other little tributary pathways. And Shodhana is about the cleaning of it, the clearing of it. So, yeah, the practice of this, it's meant to clear those energy paths. And this breath is something that I recommend, particularly actually if you're feeling unbalanced. So when you say integrating, it does have a very balancing effect it can have a very balancing effect. So try this out, particularly if you're feeling stressed and in need of calming, or if you are having trouble falling asleep. And when you try this out, it is important to sit in a back straight. It is not to be done lying down or chilling out on a couch. If you can't get up for any reason and you're lying down, then you can imagine different sides of your body breathing, but that's different. So do that. And thank you, Barbara. Good to know that you use that in your daily practice. Very good. So on to some of the questions I received. One of them was a question on brainwaves and different states, the delta state, theta state. I'm actually not an expert in that, simply because I haven't looked it up. But I can share from my experience that this actually relates to another question that I received, I think, 2 days ago on lesson 2, and it was that sound's a really powerful tool to allow the brain shifting frequency and enter the meditation state. But requesting guidance on how to avoid going too deep and fall asleep. So one thing about these brain states is you might be lying down experiencing this extraordinary brain state, but it could seem to your conscious mind like you're sleeping. So for instance, the first time I experienced this was at some kind of crystal bowl gong bath kind of thing. So I went there, it was a half an hour thing, and they were playing a bunch of crystal bowls. And if you haven't heard crystal bowls played, please go listen to crystal bowls. They're extraordinary to listen to and just bathe in that frequency of. But what I noticed is I got to this point where I heard myself snore. And that's happened again in yoga. After a very deep practice, when I'm lying down, it'll just get to this point where I can actually hear myself snore. I can hear my body as though it is like in a very, very deep sleep. But I can't actually necessarily move it, but I'm aware of it. And to a lot of people, that could look and appear like sleeping, but actually you're really not sleeping. You're in a different state of being. And in that state of being, your body is so stilled that it is a deep rest for your body. So when we describe like yoga nidra, this practice that you might be familiar with of lying down, relaxing the legs, relaxing the tension in the ankle and the thigh, working your way up, and then, oftentimes it's done in a long shavasana. That entire practice, it's really about, can you allow the body to really rest in such a deep space? So I would suggest that when you go really deep and you think that you're falling asleep, you're actually entering a different brainwave state, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. That can actually be a very deeply restorative thing for your body and your nervous system, that kind of rest. Why would you wish to avoid going too deep and falling asleep? The only reason I could think of that, and if you're online, please feel free to ask or clarify further. The only reason I could see for that is if you're like in the middle of the day and you need to get back to a whole bunch of work afterwards. Well, going deep can actually be a very deep pause. Don't try this out, but they say that when you meditate in a very deep state, even a couple hours of meditation can give you the kind of rest that a full night's sleep can. Obviously, get a full night's sleep. But so if you're in the middle of a day, then going into a deep state can reset you in a very beautiful way. However, it does make that transition back. If this were the world 5 months ago, and you had like a half an hour lunch break or something, and you wanted to meditate and use sound or something that shifts your brain frequencies, but you also wanted to come back with your logical brain turned on and ready to roll, in that case, then practice these things at night or when you can actually just unwind. Because the integration, I think one of the comments on this practice we just did was that it's very integrating. The integration of any practice is really important, and especially when you're meditating and you go deep, you don't want the integration to be skipped or to rush through it, because that can actually be quite unpleasant. It's left me with a headache before if I've jumped out of something very fast. If you feel like you're actually falling asleep and not really entering, like if you've heard me out on the little bit I've experienced on brainwaves, or from my own practice rather than the science, because I haven't studied that part of it, but if you've heard me out on that and you're like, that's great, that's cool, but I'm 100% sure I'm not doing that, I am actually falling asleep when I meditate just because I'm really tired, then then what you might like to do, 2 things: get more sleep and meditate sitting up. Get more sleep and meditate sitting up. So I hope you can hear me again. I just realized my tripod's again, oopsies, clicking on the audio thing. I think you can hear me. Cool. So I hope that helps. Another question I received was on the practice from yesterday. And the practice from yesterday was breathe, relax, feel, watch, allow. And the question was after step 3, the feeling part. I'm not sure how to watch myself feel. I can imagine standing outside of myself and watching, but I'm not sure that's what you mean. And then when I get to allow, I'm also not sure what to allow. I'm already feeling what I'm feeling. There doesn't seem to be any more to allow. So essentially I feel stuck after step 3. If you are already feeling what you're feeling, and the way this question's written, if you're already feeling what you're feeling, then you're probably already watching it and allowing it. I did draw out the amount of time on each of those steps yesterday, and it could be a lot faster. You might notice what you feel, and then it's just a matter of, okay, I notice I'm feeling that, rather than, so long as the point is to be aware of what you're feeling, rather than to be caught up in the tornado or roller coaster of the feeling. So if you already know, oh, I'm feeling this, that in itself is watching. That in itself is observation. To be able to make the comment, oh, I'm feeling this, is watching it. Yes, that is accurate, that it's not about standing outside yourself and watching, necessarily. And again, when you get to allowing, if you're not sure what to allow, if those kinds of thoughts come up, just pay attention. Maybe you already are doing the allowing. The watching and the allowing aspect, I say that, and it's important to notice that, because a lot of times we get really caught up in the feeling, in the experience of the feeling, and then instead of experiencing it, we get into a story about it. And most of the time we don't notice that we're getting into a story. But a story is identified the moment you relate it to something in the real world. The moment you relate a feeling to a place, a situation, a circumstance, something that happened to you, a time, all of that is story. And I don't mean story is not true. I just mean that's story, that's not the feeling. The practice is stay with the feeling, notice it, and allow it to be. The other place to watch out for, besides are you getting into place, person, thing, time, event, history, anything, history, future. Besides that aspect, the other thing to pay attention to is whether you're resisting the feeling, whether you're trying to push it away, whether you're not or whether you're feeling the thing, but there is a thought or a judgment of, I really don't want to feel this, or this is bad, or like, because that aspect is the not allowing. So long as those two things aren't going on, then you're probably already doing it. And when I was teaching it, I did draw out the feeling aspect. So if that seemed to have been like, all right, what am I doing? Am I doing it? You probably already are, unless you're caught up there or unless you're resisting it. So I hope that answers the questions. And what the other thing I'd really like to talk about today is what I call the best kept secret. And it's a little bit more than talking, it's a little bit of practice. This is something that changed my life when I was practicing it. I would practice, like, I used to visit a certain place and immediately spiral into a set of really unnecessary and unpleasant emotions. And there's nothing wrong with staying there, but I was kind of like, well, how do I get out of this? And I just noticed it was completely correlated to my being in a particular location, that it was just almost like clockwork, almost like press this button, that would happen. And I was like, all right, how do I get out of this? And so I started practicing this every day, and within a month, like, this thing that had been clockwork for 20-something years just vanished. And I was like, wow. So that's what this is. And what I really think that best kept secret is ease. And this comes back to the allowing. This comes back to what is meditation at its heart, this non-doing, this non-trying, but ease. And the other thing that ease comes down to is being willing to be honest with ourselves about our judgments. What do I mean by that? We often think we need to do something. We need to be something. We need to have a good experience. Or we need to feel bad if we don't accomplish something. Or we need to work hard. Or we need to do things in a certain amount of time with a certain amount of resources. There's a lot of beliefs that are patterned in there of how things should be that do keep us from letting ourselves sink into ease. Letting ourselves sink into, well, what if life were actually really easy? Because I really don't think that meditation is so hard. What I think is hard is giving ourselves permission to let life be that way. What I think is hard is really letting ourselves know that it's okay. It's really okay if we enjoy ourselves. It's really okay if we love ourselves. It's really okay if things feel good. So, here is the practice, and ping questions anytime. I actually don't know if I can't see them because I did respond to some of them, so I can't see them, so ping questions. Yeah, so what is this practice of ease? I'm going to take a sip of tea and let you think about that for a second. You might remember on day one, when we got started, I said something about you can reach into a feeling, that we live in this sort of fabric, this mesh of vibration, and you can reach into a feeling. And I think we tried it out with an unpleasant feeling. I think I suggested find something you're angry about and reach into it. You can do the opposite. You can find something that feels easy and reach into it. And lean into it. And it's not about getting there, it's about the practice of leaning in. And as you lean in, it's kind of like, that's a very bad analogy. I was going to say the Leaning Tower of Pisa. But I guess it's like being at the top of a hill. Well, it's a thing of momentum. You lean in, and then the momentum grows. And you lean in, and the momentum grows. And you lean in, and it becomes really, really easy until you're there. And the same thing, you lean into something really that makes you angry, you lean in some more, you think about it, you lean in even more, you lean in even more, and then next thing you know, you're really angry. and the momentum is high. So how do you slow down? You slow down through the rest, through the reset, through the sleep. And when you're in a place of being slowed down, such as what we've been doing with the different practices, then, if you are brave and willing to imagine that life could be easy, then you lean into ease. So, here we go. Notice how you feel. Take a few breaths with the intention of coming to a place closer to stillness, coming to a place even like a little fraction of a centimeter closer to stillness than where you might have been a few moments ago. And another couple breaths with the intention of coming to a place where you're closer to stillness. So you're kind of slowing down, slowing down, slowing down. And then from here, just reach the tiniest bit for something that feels really good. For me, it's the feeling of the cushion that I'm sitting on, and I'm kind of actually lopsided, but that's kind of funny. Huh, how cool. It's kind of curious. It feels interesting. If you're waking up in the morning trying this out later on, it could be, wow, the pillow or the blanket. Don't reach too much in the past or the future, just stay right now, because that's the only real thing right now. And feel for something that feels good, because you are a multidimensional being, and there are a million universes going on inside of you, and you can reach for any one of them. So reach for a feeling that feels good right now. And as you reach for that, start to think thoughts that are like that. Like, oh, there is space in my neck. Wow, that space feels so good. Or, ooh, there's tingles here. That feels really nice. That feels kind of magical. Feel for the feeling of feeling good. And use that paintbrush, use that artist, use that creator of your mind to supply you with more thoughts so you can hone in on that. So for instance, supplying with more thoughts to hone in could look like, yummy. This spaciousness in the back of my neck is so nice. Wow. Doesn't that spaciousness just feel so nice? Ooh, nice spaciousness. And I can kind of see with my mind like tendrils of light flowing through it and the expansion in it. So I just spent a few seconds there talking about the spaciousness in the back of my neck. So do something similar with something that feels good for you. It's about turning your mind chatter to the thing that feels good and leaning into that. And the more and more you practice this, the more and more that feeling grows. They say that thoughts turn into things, but the quickest way to know what you're really thinking, because we have so many thoughts, right? We have a conscious thought, a million subconscious thoughts. I made up that number, but the quickest way to know what we're thinking is to just check in on what are you feeling in that moment. Because when you feel in that moment, that's sort of the first place those thoughts have become real. So do try leaning into that feeling. I recommend practicing this as soon as you wake up or right after you meditate. Yes, it is meditation in itself, but it's easiest to practice when the mind is already slightly slower. And it's a little bit like talking to a child, you know? If there's a child who's really fixated on a piece of gummy worm and they really want that piece of gummy worm, and you're like, well, I want you to think of something else, because, you know, they're getting very upset about this piece of gummy worm because they're so focused on the gummy worm and everything that gummy worm represents. And that gummy worm might represent, you know, not being heard, not, you know, it could represent any number of things. And they get so fixated on it. And how do you respond to a child like that? I mean, you distract them. You say, hey, do you remember your friends coming over to play with you this weekend? And, you know, if you're lucky, that works. or you just show them something completely different, and their mind is like, huh? What? And then they start to think about that. It's just about shifting where you place the focus. So the way to play with it, that best kept secret, is that it's okay, it's good, it's wonderful to reach a place of ease, to feel into that feeling of ease. And to do that, ideally, when you're in a slow place already. So right when you wake up, right after you do some breathing practice. But reach for that. And yeah, let me know how that goes for you. The homework for today is, what is your feel-good feeling? Like, what is, when you practice it today, you might notice that maybe there's a particular thought that's easy for you to think. Like for me with the bed and waking up, it's always the pillow supporting my neck because that feels good. So what is it like? What is a little touchstone, a little memory of a feel-good feeling that you can come back to? And yeah, pop that in the homework thread. Let me know what that is. That's the homework for today. And see you tomorrow. Tomorrow I will do some kind of lucky giveaway. And let me check out. Well, I'll finish what I'm saying. I'll answer this question. Tomorrow I'll do some kind of lucky draw giveaway thing. So if you answer the homeworks, I'll count up who's answered what homeworks and then write your names on a piece of paper and draw it out of a hat. So answer the homework questions. I'm also going to be starting an 8-week Explore Meditation class, and it's going to be reasonably priced, I hope. And if it's not, just talk to me. I want you to meditate. So if you want to join me on an 8-week meditation journey to just explore meditation and have fun, then stay tuned. I'll share a link for registering for that tomorrow, and we'll start the following week. Barbara says that practice also has face value. It's funny since it makes you smile. I appreciate the fun. Actually, that's more than just face value. That's sort of the end result. You know, in my Leaning Tower of Pisa example, you lean in, you lean in, you lean in, and eventually, you know, it gathers enough momentum that maybe it falls or it goes. When you lean into ease and you lean into feeling good, you lean in, lean in, lean in. And if you do it for long enough, so remember I told you I was in a really low place and I practiced this first thing every morning for a month. And like, I'd feel good for maybe a minute and then I'd go back there. And the next day I'd restart and feel good maybe for 2 minutes and I'd go back there. And then the next day I'd restart. And by the time I got to the end of the month, like, I would feel really good till the afternoon and I would be smiling and radiant and joyful. And what happens is that as the momentum gains, it goes faster and faster and faster, and it starts to light up everything else in your life. It starts to make you feel inspired, and then you follow the seeds of inspiration. You follow the thread of one thing to the next, and you know how that, I mean, all of you know that. You've all experienced inspiration before. You follow one thing, it leads to another good thing. You follow one thing, it leads to another good thing. That's how inspiration works. So when you do that, it builds up. But to get there, you need a gateway. You need an entrance. And there's a million entrances. You can pick a million entrances. And so the homework is, what is your feel-good feeling? I.e., what is that entrance for you to enter? Beautiful, beautiful, Sandra. But I would suggest that as you practice, try to feel good and reach into something that's in your present moment, not reach into a memory from the past. That's really only to challenge you. And to let you know, to let you learn that you don't need something in the past to reach into that feeling. That can be the touchstone, but can you find something in your body right now to lean into? Something in your field right now that feels good? Because when you start doing that, it sort of preps the landscape for recognizing that you have all these amazing worlds going on in you right now. So that's useful. I'll make sure to close the window tomorrow. Cool. So post those all in the homework thread. And Rafaela, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. Let me know. It's a beautiful name. Thanks for addressing my question before. I'm again almost asleep. Is the unconscious mind taking over? Interesting. Well, are you getting enough sleep? In general, are you getting enough sleep? Are you tired normally day to day? Because if you're not getting enough sleep, then please go get more sleep. If you are getting enough sleep and you're getting tired as you meditate, and you're drifting off as you meditate, then let that happen. Because that could be different states coming in. That probably is different states coming in. And when the body is releasing patterns, programs, when the mind is like reprogramming itself, when the spirit is, I don't mean these in scientific ways at all, I just mean when like the spirit and the soul are doing a lot of deep inner work, then the body generally goes deep and shuts down. Yes. Oh, yes, I believe you're in Asia. Yes, okay. Yeah. Why don't you try out re-listening to one of the classes or doing a meditation when you wake up, when you're feeling refreshed, and see if that experience is different. Because it could be that your body is saying it's time for sleep. But if you're doing it in the morning after a good night's sleep and you're still dozing off, then it's probably the unconscious tapping in and these different brainwave states coming up. So try it out in the morning if you can, yeah? Cool. Any other questions today? All right, if there's no other questions, see you tomorrow, and I will send a link tomorrow if you're interested in joining me for an 8-week class. And yeah, and do the homeworks, because I'll pick a lucky draw winner for something fun. And if you have requests for what that lucky draw winner should win, let me know as well. So see you tomorrow, and rest well, rest deeply. Goodbye.